So Fred at that's Conference Report has shot a response to me in my most recent video on technology, education, and balance, and his video is called "Good Laziness," and I really enjoyed the video. I think I will see to what extent I can try to play devil's advocate, sort of in a similar in a similar way. I mean, I think, yeah, Fred, I'm not trying to really say that people should or shouldn't be lazy. I'm all for people enjoying their laziness. I'm just saying when I say that the lazy have never been more doomed. I mean I think your position seemed to be something like it could be for the betterment of humanity if more people were more lazy and just sort of cocktail partied in a sort of collectivist laziness. That's not really the position, but it was sort of something along that line. And as if I were advocating individual um, purpose and in long-term individual goals. I'm advocating those because those are the conditions of the playing field in the literate society. And unfortunately, it just does seem that here in the U.S., I think we're separated by an ocean here. In the U.S., it's so cutthroat. It's so horrible for people who can't get jobs and insurance, other kinds of forms of just basic care, and all of this I see from my perspective is these are just setting up the conditions for the corporate machine to have more forms of exploitation. Like part of the meaning of the electric age, and this was McLuhan again, was that he says the computer says to the specialist, "Come into my parlor," right? That a specialization goes the way of the buggy whip, but that means that everyone has to do everything. See, because now all information is available everywhere, you're getting professors. Let's just take if you're a professor, you type your own papers, you do your own secretarial work. If you have a book, you're going to end up doing your own marketing and advertising for the thing. It's so different than the days of old, where the professors, they spoke and then they had secretaries load their stuff in. Increasingly, the the information distribution and easy access is removing specialization, which is, I guess, collapsing hierarchical and structural functions that allowed certain elites to enjoy privileges and then to, I guess, pursue certain areas with a focus and an expertise, and then all these other things could be delegated off to other people. Now, when I say the lazy are doomed, I just mean that in the U.S., not only will is there this issue of getting a job in a depressed economy, but there's really dwindling healthcare, and I'm very concerned about the healthcare issue here. Um, and I think, from my perspective as well, it's lots of people are spending here in the U.S. They're spending lots of money to go to school, and I think they're misunderstanding it. I don't think you misrepresented my view, but a little bit you misrepresented my view. I mean, you sort of suggested, and this is what I was arguing against. Okay, is that you said that I gave the three metaphors of the person who's sort of the convenient shopper in the mall, and then the hungry student who's doing the stuff, and then I'm not sure what the third one was that you gave at the end, but the the one that I was saying was, no, it's more like a gym or a facility, right? If you go look at some of those uh, dialogues that Valerie and I had done, we were talking. She has a paper on metaphor. I think it's available if you go to the Wide-Eyed page, on the gym as what university is, and it's what you're asked to give, how you live up. I mean, I was being critical on YouTube in some way for a consumer passive orientation because it doesn't help people become genuinely knowledgeable. And I want to get at this issue of knowledgeability. I mean, that was largely the theme that I was trying to drive at, which is the more that someone becomes knowledgeable, and I mean internalizes knowledge, I think they're at an advantage. I was going to sort of disagree with some of the claim that you were suggesting about that we now, a person isn't necessarily the better decision maker about what, I guess, information is in long term interest or long term goals. I mean, I'm not really sure how you were setting that argument up, but it seems like with the information explosion, the best, I don't know, the best disambiguator is going to be a knowledgeable person. You can have a search engine do it. How will it do it? What will be the parceling algorithm? How will it know what it's deeming relevant from irrelevant, and how will it set its own purposes? See, the notion of purpose and relevance seem very different when we talk about humans and even organic systems, when we start to talk about computers and technology. Take teaching as an example. Okay. See, I think some people say, well, we don't need teachers anymore. See, we don't need teachers because we all have search engines. Yeah, search engines aren't knowledgeable. They're not. They give access to knowledge, but it makes more and more of a demand upon the person to determine the relevant from the irrelevant. Thayer used to say, which in class was a wonderful line, he used to say, if you knew the difference between good advice and bad advice, you'd probably need not that much advice. Yeah, that's the problem, though. And so the idea that people will not have to be knowledgeable because they have more access, and as knowledge becomes externalized and is sort of collectively made available, we won't need individuals to determine, I guess, purpose and relevance. I'm very skeptical. I think what that's going to do is it's going to make very few people, they're going to thrive, and they're going to become easily appropriated by the corporate interests that are already elites, and it will further those interests. There was a young man, I can't remember his name, but he shot a nice little response video to my rant a couple, I guess yesterday or so, and it was good. I mean, I think there's a sense in which capitalist interests are, they're sort of taking over in so many ways. I don't think people are realizing how they're being appropriated. I mean, people at least used to have to pay actors. They have to pay people to get their advertising on. Now people are willingly, just to break out of anonymity, people willingly make their material available for other people's advertising. I mean, it's sort of interesting. And I do think that the healthcare issue is significant. The reason, I guess, the thing that I would maybe disagree with my own position earlier, if I could do that sort of and rally with you here, is that, I mean, I think I was maybe overstating some of the purpose stuff. That, I mean, there is a genuine pleasure in good conversation and in interaction with people whose views and opinions you find interesting, and perhaps you've learned from them, and it's fun to cocktail party conversation, to have cocktail party conversation sort of online in a virtual way. I think it raises maybe an issue. I've heard some people say that in the whole atheist community, they do this. Some atheists are religious. Whatever this means, and it's, some people want to claim it, other people want to deny it. I don't want to get into that haggle, but it might be fun to ask the question: Is YouTubing a kind of religious community? Is it? And when I say it's religious, I mean it's shot with overtones of transcendence. That when you post a video, it's more than a here and now act. I mean, you're doing something to your own consciousness that's acting back upon itself, and it's a form of self-transformation, but it's also, which is, I think, often what people think of when they think of prayer. I mean, prayer is an act of utterance, and in the utterance there is a kind of transformation. You imagine something is heard by other people, and I think there is a belief that for many people here on YouTube, they, it's like they're creating a legacy, a source of transcendence for themselves, a living record, a kind of museum that people could go to. They're setting up the conditions for ancestor worship. I mean, I'm not sure what it is, but it seems like someone might make the argument, that to be a YouTuber is to at least have some kind of religious sympathies. It's to recognize oneself as more than space and time flesh destined to die, that somehow one can be a disincarnate presence that's transcendent of one's own life and death. At any rate, so I guess there's lots of reasons that people shoot YouTube, and I really enjoyed your response. But I am thinking the lazy are doomed, at least here in the U.S. So thanks.